yesterday, Governor Wolf and Secretary of Health Levine announced yet another devastating blow to the restaurant industry by shutting down indoor dining completely. Rather than admit that the current mitigation tactics have not produced the desired outcomes, the administration decided to double down and target an already heavily mitigated industry with 1 day notice. So now, 2 weeks before Christmas, a time when our industry was hoping to scrape enough together to keep the lights on through the difficult winter weeks ahead, employers will be forced to lay off thousands of workers. These dedicated frontline employees will have to go home to their children and let them know in the most difficult of years that Christmas has now been canceled. PRLA was asked for suggestions last week and none of our advice was considered. Most important was something that any employer or compassionate person would understand. You do not adversely impact people's livelihoods going into the holiday. We advised that any increase in mitigation be held till after the first of the year and that adequate notice be given. Because of Governor Wolf's short notice decision, tens of thousands of pounds of food, millions of dollars worth, will sit rotting in coolers across the Commonwealth tomorrow. The administration continues to point to faulty studies, specifically the Stanford Northwestern study and the Yale study, as justification for these measures. Yesterday, they added a JP Morgan Chase study to their roster of evidence. The JP Morgan Chase study simply analyzed point-of-sale spending trends in different sectors. We, along with our partners at the National Restaurant Association, have previously pointed out the numerous flaws with the Stanford, Northwestern, and Yale studies. Simply, the Stanford study used cell phone data to perform a modeling exercise during a time frame when the nation's restaurants were closed to indoor dining. The Yale study was also a mathematical model attempting to predict deaths based on whether restaurants were open or closed, regardless of whatever mitigation might have been in place. In addition to these so-called studies, Secretary Levine mentioned Florida. In the November study utilizing real data conducted by Oxford University and reported in the November 18th edition of the New York Times, Florida, with relatively little mitigation compared to Pennsylvania, has fewer cases and fewer hospitalizations per 100,000 people. Perhaps Secretary Levine should look at Florida as an example that extreme mitigation is not the answer. I find it preposterous that our livelihoods are being sacrificed because the administration refuses to accept that the science supporting their decision-making does not exist. On Monday, the secretary admitted that she didn't know where the cases were coming from because there were too many to track. Basing the decision on case counts, maybe the governor and his team should look at Georgia. With similar populations and being one of the least mitigated states in the nation, last week, Georgia experienced about half of the case counts of Pennsylvania. And in the aforementioned Oxford University study, it has less case counts per 100,000 people overall and the same level of hospitalizations per 100,000. But Georgians still have jobs. Early on during the pandemic, when I mentioned Georgia to one of the governor's staff members, I was told, "John, Pennsylvania is not Georgia." He's right. Pennsylvania is not Georgia. Georgia still has an economy and case counts considerably lower than Pennsylvania, and Georgians will have Christmas. The most frustrating aspect is Governor Wolf's continued insistence that he is not at fault for the hardship faced by restaurants. He says it's the virus's fault. The governor is responsible for making the decisions on mitigation, not the virus. And the decisions Governor Wolf have made not only failed to slow the spread, but they also potentially exacerbated that spread. His decisions also have devastated the lives of hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvania hospitality employers and employees 2 weeks before Christmas. PRLA will continue to fight for our industry. We are exploring all of our options. Today, we sent you a brief 5-question survey. Please take 2 minutes to fill it out, as it will help guide our process. Additionally, Congress is still negotiating the bipartisan $908 billion bill that includes an additional round of Paycheck Protection Program money. Time is running out for Congress to act on it. Make them know how important this bill is to your livelihood by taking another 2 minutes to send a letter to your federal elected officials through either the AHLA or National Restaurant Association Action Alerts. Links are in today's PRLA Daily Update. I'm John Longstreet with another edition of It Happened This Week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.